Kathy, thank you so much for being on mine and Julia's podcast, Automating Success. This is Kathy Moseler, known as the Robot Lady. We are very happy to have you on the podcast, and we want to know what song represents your thought process as you're driving around, doing your thing during the day. What song resonates with Kathy?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'm very honored to be here. But yeah, and it was a challenge actually picking the song, and I actually ended up with 3 songs. So the first one is by Led Zeppelin, Your Time Is Gonna Come. So the reason that song resonates with me is that it represents the patience I've had to have regarding robotic lawnmowers. I've been in this business for 13 years and I don't see robot mowers everywhere. I find that frustrating. But every time I hear that song, I think about how that's going to happen. We're going to have robot mowers everywhere. So that's number 1. Number 2 is actually was the idea of my, what I'd call genius daughter marketing person. She's at IU studying marketing. She said to pick Don't Stop Me Now. So I went and listened to the lyrics of that and realized, I do like that song, but it's actually all about the fun I've been having with this business. I mean, you cannot understand the excitement people have about getting a robotic lawnmower and seeing it working until after they own it. And they're so thrilled and give you that feedback. And that's the thing that makes it really, really fun for me. So then the one that I actually thought I would like to pick, as the one possibly is I Want to Be a Billionaire. But yeah. The thing was, I listened to the lyrics and I'm like, but I don't want to be like that. That's all about like accumulating wealth and having stuff and all this stuff. That's not what it's about for me. What it's about for me is changing the world. So being a billionaire to me means I've either done it myself or influenced others to change the world. And, if I get 10 million, 100 million, 1 million, what does it matter? If I can look out and see that I was part of that change, that makes me a billionaire. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, I want to interject there and say that Tech Magazine did an article and said robotic lawn mowing, in their opinion, in the next decade would be an $80 billion industry. So first, there should be 80 billionaires in this industry, right? Yep. So I don't think at all it's strange or weird that you would say that, especially when you're talking from an entrepreneurial point of view. You have put in 13 years of your life to devote your time and your brain power to get a snowball rolling in an industry that's been very slow to adopt this technology. So some people might look at it and say, well, if Kathy achieved that, like, what's she doing with that $1 billion? But I look at that and say, well, the first thing we have to do is divide that $1 billion by 13 years, because most people don't realize the amount of legwork someone like you puts in to pounding the pavement before things finally happen. So,
yeah.
So
exactly.
Thank you for everyone in the industry for 13 hard years. I will say something that's Kathy and I, to the audience, we talked for, a good half year, and then realized we played volleyball together, and also realized that you were driving a vehicle with robotic lawn mowing magnets. And this is before I was into automation like I am. And I didn't even look twice at it as a large landscaper. Do you want to elaborate on that? Because we had a funny conversation about this,
Oh, I know. It's so funny that Joe keeps telling me, we're at the trade show, and you're telling me I know you from somewhere. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know. And finally he puts it together that we were on the volleyball team. So there's another thing we all three of us have in common. And then it's like, oh yeah, you're that. No, remember what I said? I said,
I don't know. I think you might have said you're that asshole that wants to win all.
No. I said you were Michael Jordan on that team. Remember I said that?
I was very flattered. You made me blush a little bit.
Well, we can talk more and unpack that a little bit, but I would like to do that a little bit if you don't mind. Unpack that a little, because when I said that, I think most people would take that as, I'm a star, I'm a great volleyball player. Okay, I listened to your podcast where you guys were talking volleyball, so Julia knows, right?
Yeah.
Great, but weird approach, So I knew that too at the time. But what I meant by that, I don't know if you saw the, what do they call that thing? Whatever, the series, the documentary about the Bulls documentary that was just on. I watched the whole thing. Okay. There was a point where Phil Jackson says, Michael, sorry, you're not going to get the ball all the time anymore. We're going to do this triangle, whatever he called it. I don't know basketball. So I just like Michael Jordan, So anyway, so that's what I meant, is like on that team, you were at the stage of Michael Jordan before the ball got spread around, right? So that's what I meant by it.
So you're basically saying I was a ball hog. So I shouldn't have blushed. Now I'm sweating nervously. But
no. Well, I'll just go on the volleyball thing a little bit more. Okay, so I'm a setter. I'm also a hitter. We could talk about that later. How can a 5'3" person be a good hitter? We can get into that later. But as a setter, my job is to make you guys hit better. Okay. If your balls aren't slamming down, crushing it, that's my fault. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the setter's job is to make the hitters better. And I don't believe in just making one person better. I want to make everyone on the team better. And when I'm a setter, I have 5 players ready to hit at all times. And I'm going to give them a dynamite set every single time, no matter how bad the pass is. That is my goal. Okay. So I refine that and I maximize that. So it's a technique. I think there is a name for it called maximizing. And that's kind of like who I am. Everything I do, I maximize to perfection. Not perfection as an obsession, but perfection to get results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense.
All right.
I like to think that I'm the type of hitter that can hit anything that gets thrown up,
That's great. No, I like that. You like that, but I'm not going to give you slop. So
yeah. I will say it's always funny to me because when I met Gretchen at volleyball, and I always say like we kind of come together as like a package team at volleyball, and so yeah, it's like I remember because you brought up too, like you were like, wait, you're that husband wife that plays or whatever. So I remember thinking back because you kind of did remember us as a package, So.
Yes, I did, and you looked very different too because you had between when I knew you and then, and I think that's why I didn't recognize you because you had lost a lot of weight. So congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you had no beard either.
Yeah, and I didn't have the beard.
The beard. Oh
yeah, right. I think the beard threw me too. Yep.
Yeah, sure. yeah. Well, then you just knew me as the volleyball player, ball hog Joe, apparently, and now you know me as a professional robotic Joe. So.
I'll tell you something, Joe. I would not know in a million years, based on who I knew you as only as a person on that court, and knowing you now. They were like night and day difference. So that's a challenge to you to work on that, to integrate your whole life, even into the volleyball team. Okay.
Yeah. So one of the things that I always tell people is this for me with volleyball, and it's actually ironic you bring that up, and then we'll move off volleyball. But one of my biggest frustrations with volleyball is I play volleyball as like I don't have to be the leader that I am every day in my life,
I see.
290 employees looking to me for answers all the time, needing me to be like that, like stand-up leader, always setting the right example. And what I've always told people is when I go play volleyball, that's like the one thing that I do for me. I just want to go and I just want to play. I don't want to have to explain to people why I want to win. I don't want to have to explain to people why I look irritated if we're not winning, because I do, as a business owner, sometimes you have to put on your best face even though you don't want to. So for me, in that 1 hour, I just want to do me. And the other thing that I always tell people that's difficult with volleyball, and I'll say this, for me that listen, is everybody that's played volleyball with me, and it's one of her biggest challenges because she's always telling me to smile, and Gretchen will tell me smile. And this is the one thing that I've seen playing, volleyball is really a woman-dominated sport. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's only been recently where there's, men's volleyball, like high school level stuff, right? So for me, I always want the women that I play with to understand something. The sports that I grew up in, football, wrestling, they're contact sports. And you were pretty much told, like, channel your anger. We're okay with you being angry. If we don't score a touchdown, be pissed off, be upset, So I always try to tell people, like, when I have all these women always be like, smile, we want you to be fun. It should be fun. And I'm always like, we're losing. What are you talking about?
Just trying to pick you up out on the court.
I know. So, but there's something that could, what you said, I liked how you said, let's unwrap this a little bit. It's something, if we're unwrapping, like men, sometimes like men versus women, I always like to say, like, let's talk about what makes us different, This is a difference for me in just background, so it's like, I'm sure if I had played volleyball, like you did, club, like with you and your daughters, yes, we've been told, like, be happy. Like I see the girls that are like, oh, ace, and they jump in. Guys would never do that. Like, guys just don't do that kind of thing,
It would be pretty fun. It's my goal to get you to do that.
Okay, so it's like, what I always like to tell people is, like, if we appreciated each other for what we are all the time, and didn't ask somebody to change because of the way they were brought up, and just appreciate it. Like, so, like, for me, sometimes I can be a jerk at volleyball. I'll just say it. Like, sometimes I'm just a jerk. But at the end of the day, if you had to pick who you wanted to set, game point, Kathy, who you want to throw a set up to last point of the game, do you throw it up to me because I'm going to want to pound that ball because I want to win so bad? Or do you, to me, I would think that everybody out there wants to win. So you sort all that out point by point and just let people be who they are and have fun. Anyways, I'm on a tangent.
He was on a tangent. Let's reroute.
So we're rerouting, okay? Rebooting the system here. All right, so now, that said, off of volleyball, we may come back to it now because I'm going to ask, we want to learn about young Kathy, okay?
Okay.
We know the Kathy we know now. So tell us family background and what you think got you into the field of robotics.
Sure. So I was born in Chicago. We moved around 5 times when I was a kid, various Chicago suburbs, one time downstate. My dad was a banker, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom at first, then receptionist, and then later on turned into a computer programmer, believe it or not. So I had 2 brothers. We were all very close in age, 15 months apart. So it was your classic 70s dysfunctional family. You want to know what that looks like, Julia? Go to watch the first Star Wars movie and look at go to the scene where they're in the pit and they're all arguing.
I've actually never seen any Star Wars movie to this day.
It would be worth it to watch it just for that, so you understand what a 70s dysfunctional family is. Yeah, a lot of arguing in that movie. So that was kind of our family. Unfortunately, our parents just divorced when I was about 14 years old. So that made my teen years very, very difficult. I would say I was an angry teenager until I was about 29. So yeah, pretty much took that long for me to grow out of it. So then it came time to go to college, and we didn't have money with it because of the divorce. It was evident I was going to have to pay my own way. But I also didn't know what to major in. So I was talking to my mom. I remember I was in the kitchen. I was looking at college brochures because back then we didn't have the internet. So you literally wrote to the college and they sent you stuff in the mail. So I'm poured over these brochures, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. And she said, why don't you be an engineer? I'm like, what's that? Driving a train? How many kids' books have you read? Both of you. That it still says being an engineer is driving the train, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know it then, but I'm a very analytical person. And I actually looked up the curriculums for the majors I was interested in. One of them was business and the other was engineering. So I was kind of comparing business to engineering. Why electrical engineering? Actually, young people are into music, right? Well, back then we got our music through the radio and through records, and you had a console that you looked at, and it had vents because there was so much heat and everything coming out of it. And I would look in the vents and kind of wonder how is that? How does that do that? So I had an innate curiosity. So I compared the curriculums of electrical engineering to the business curriculum, and I looked in, there was this book, it's still out there. It's a government book that says what every occupation, how much money they make, what the demand is, all this stuff. So I compared the two down to that level. What salary am I going to make when I get out of school? Am I going to be able to find a job? And when I compared the two, they both look good, but I saw that engineering actually paid quite a bit more. But then when I compared the curriculum, it was so much harder, right? But business, I was much more drawn to. So I was always very interested in business. So anyway, push came to shove. My decision was I'm going to major in engineering. And if I don't do well at it, or if it doesn't work out, I'm going to switch to business. So that was my plan. So had that figured out then, had to get accepted into school. So I got accepted at the University of Florida and also at Auburn University because I wanted to go someplace warm. I was always, okay, let's put it this way. Back in those days, I wasn't given a lot of coaching because I was kind of raised to be very independent. And I just remember freezing my butt off in the cold Chicago winters. And I couldn't imagine myself walking from class to class, freezing my butt off. I just knew I'd be miserable. So anyway, I'm getting too long-winded. Long story short. So I get to Auburn. I was a co-op student throughout school, which gave me, before I graduated, 2 years of industry experience. And growing up, I was always a good student. I always had good grades. And I graduated Auburn with high honors, 3.7 out of 4 GPA. So I did really well in school, even though it was a struggle, having to pay for it myself, et cetera. So graduated. I was thinking I was going to stay in the South because of the weather, but actually, even though, family life was dysfunctional, it's kind of like, well, if I move away, I'll have to always be coming back for the holidays, and I'll be the one going there. So I'm like, all right, forget it. I'm just going to move back. So I moved back, got a job. First job was Zenith, the TV company, worked there a year. And I worked at Siemens for 5 years. That's a medical equipment company. And then I ended up at Motorola for 15 years, where I had a really good ride. Motorola was awesome. I learned so much there. The formal training that you get at a big company is really invaluable and shaped who I became. Okay. And it gave the so many different experiences I had there, gave me a tremendous amount of knowledge. Here's a really interesting thing. I worked in research there for 9 years, and then I transitioned to a product team. When I was in research, I was working on video conferencing technology. So here we are.
That's something.
It's just so amazing. So, so I have that. Now remember, what year was that? 2001. 1997, I remember designing the hardware for it.
That's when I graduated high school. 1997.
Yeah, 1997. Okay, and it's the same as robotic lawnmowers. We'd show it to people, they'd get so excited, but then it just wasn't taking off. You know when it finally did take off? Skype. That was the first one. Yeah. There were little dabbles here and there, like our product that I developed, the circuits I developed. I remember seeing it in a flyer, or I forget what, maybe Best Buy or something. You know, it was in an Acer product, I believe. But you know, nobody bought it, right? Just the people living far away. But here we have this pandemic, and now it's taken off. So something's going to tip the balance in robotic mowers too. And when I got way in the beginning, I knew it could be a 20-year ride before it takes off. I knew that. And I went in anyway.
Yeah.
And others who get in this business may not be as patient as me. So it's a major challenge. So, yeah. Anyway. Question?
No, you're doing good. I was just letting you run with it. So.
All right, I can keep running.
So I mean, we know robotics is a passion of yours. Do you see, you know, in this field, do you see any advantages or disadvantages to be, you know, the robot lady? You know?
Oh, yeah, the robot lady. That's another story. Okay. So 15 years at Motorola. And frankly, what did me in there, I was just fed up with the long commute. Through all my experiences at Motorola, I had been involved in several different startup efforts because I realized I was an entrepreneur trying to work in a big company, get stuff done in a big company as an entrepreneur. It's impossible. And since I like getting stuff done, I wasn't going to stay there and keep spinning my wheels and be miserable and then have the long commute on top of it, which I also really hated every day. Same thing. And Joe, if I listen to people talking, I know you love podcasts. If I listen to people talking, except for you, because you're super entertaining, it puts me to sleep. So
it's a good cover up.
So I would try listening
Kathy,
in the commute.
Did you hear what Julia just said?
What?
So that was a good cover up.
No, I really mean it. One thing you'll learn about me is I'm really authentic. So I actually really, really mean that. I'm going to be listening, a huge fan, and will be listening to your podcast always. But anyway, no, I did try it. I had a CD and I put it in. It was I don't remember what the topic was, but I remember I was driving and within like 10 minutes I was tuned out. I daydream. So it just didn't work. So anyway, long story short, I decided, look, and then at the end of it, okay, I'm working really hard at the end of my career at Motorola and I'm not getting the results. I've got this long commute. I'm like, if I'm going to have to work this hard, I might as well start my own business. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So then I had to decide what business. So my husband and I, we discussed it. He had done a business before. I had done a tiny business before. Well, I guess his was bigger than mine. But anyway, he had a lot of experience from his tiny business. I just had, I dabbled. Okay, I'm not going to call my first one a business. So with him being the mentor for starting the business, we got it off the ground. And then it was kind of like, well, sorry, I got to back up because I forgot to say how I picked it. But it was I was ready to do any business, to tell you the truth. I was going to sell art supplies online. But we were actually in the market to buy a robotic lawnmower then. And we go on the website at that time, it was the LawnBot brand. And we're looking at the specs, trying to make sure, is it going to work for us? We're both engineers, so we'd be able to figure that out, right? Well, they had this little emblem, dealers wanted. And I just said, that's it. That's what I want to do. And so that's how I ended up, to answer, long story short, to answer your question of how I ended up in robotics. That is how I ended up in robotics.
So Kathy, let me tell you the good news. Most people that listen to podcasts don't fall asleep while they're driving listening to them. So your long stories are okay.
Great. I love it.
Yeah, it's okay with us,
Okay,
so
good.
we like them.
Thanks for the affirmation, because I'm a newbie to podcasts, and I find when I'm talking to people with these long stories, they get really bored. I see them shifting. I'm like, oh God, I gotta.
Yeah, well, no, I mean,
concise,
you're keeping us going. If you hear me drop my water bottle or something, that'll be the code word to keep
oh, thank you. Okay, perfect.
So honestly, I'm not going to do that. Now I might do it just to mess with you, but one of the things though that I was trying to get you to say when I said being the robot lady, are you finding in this field, and this is more of a, obviously I do this with my daughter, I want her to be more successful than myself. Any issues in this field landscaping is a male dominated field. So are you finding any issues with that in the field, or I'm interested to hear your
so glad you brought that up. Actually, I just had an issue with that.
Really?
Yes, I went to do a reinstall for a customer I had installed in 2013. And I was very familiar with the property, but he had made some changes. He actually put sidewalks on both sides of the house. Mm-hmm. And he had put the sidewalks in like a couple of weeks ago. And there was a difference in the height between the sidewalk and the ground. And the installers that were helping me, they were great. They're really great guys, really meant well, but they didn't have a lot of installs under their belt, okay? And I was trying to explain that it's necessary for the ground to be level with the sidewalk in order for the robot to trim the sidewalk. Otherwise, you have to put the wire 14 inches away.
Yeah, treat it as like a vertical surface.
I don't care what brand robot mower you're using. We promote Ambrosio, and previously same manufacturer, it was Lawnbot. But I don't care which robot mower it is. They all need that.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yep.
It's physics, Okay, well, should I blame the man-woman thing, or should I just blame it's just somebody who didn't know, it's new, so didn't know. I don't know, but I've run into this before where as a woman, and I'm trying to explain to a man that it needs to be this way and there's good, reasons for it, often get dismissed, often. So in this particular case, the night that we had to go back the next day, it was a few days later, and finish it, okay? And I'm getting dismissed again. Well, I had only had 4 hours of sleep, and I couldn't control it. I just went ballistic. I said, look, guys, I'm done experimenting, okay? It's not going to work, and we're going to do it this way. Oh, it worked. It was great. I tell you, don't be afraid to pull that trigger if you're not getting results.
So would you mind expanding on that? I feel like this is one of the things as her dad that I have tried to get instilled to her more than anything is that part of the difference between men and women is the only difference, and I should tell you this because you and I are going to work a lot together. The only difference between us is I'm never going to be nervous to pull the trigger and say what I want to say. It doesn't mean that I think that women should be happy when they're dealing with a man that just says what he wants to say to a woman, because I'm not treating you any different than I expect to be treated. So then I always tell her, like, with us working together, I'm going to tell you, like, I want this done right now. If you can't, I want you to tell me it's not going to happen right now because I just can't do it. Because I'm saying, okay, well, when can it happen? You see what I mean? And I feel like a lot of women, I've had this conversation with my mom because she worked for the city of Elgin. A lot of women will like hold that in. I don't really know why it is. I don't know if it's upbringing. I don't know if it's just personality traits genetically. I don't know. But I will say, I applaud you. You just got to tell them, like, no, I'm not doing it.
I want, again, I think I mentioned I listened to your first 3 episodes already. And Julia, I wanted to compliment you on something, because one thing that's going to really help you is your authoritative voice. You have a very authoritative voice. Probably, apple not falling not far from the tree could be, but whatever way you got it, I'm telling you, it will work. That will be the thing that works really well for you in your
I
career.
appreciate that, actually. That hit in the heart.
Yeah. So I actually worked, I think I mentioned I worked at Siemens for 5 years, and that was my second job after college. And the person I worked for was actually a woman. And at the time, she was just an engineering manager, but she actually went on to become the president of a division. And you carry yourself the same way she did. She was tall too, by the way. I think tallness helps. It really does. Yeah, tallness definitely.
I'm rocking the 5'9". Maybe.
Well, okay, she was 6'2" or something, but
okay, so I'm not there yet. 5'9".
I assumed, yeah.
Well,
that's right. You did say you were 5'9". I forgot, but 5'9" is plenty tall.
Yeah. Well, no, the other day there was, I guess I was gone and we got a Husqvarna shipment, and the guys were telling me that she was like looking for pallet forks, and she's like, get those forks off that machine and go to that truck. And they said awesome. Literally, it was like you'd almost thought it was like a reenactment of how I would do it, you know?
Yeah.
Well, I was stressed. I was pulling the trigger.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Because I got to see that was so beneficial, because the men, they treated her properly, like a real boss, because she carried herself as a boss.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to overstep any bounds when I say this. I actually, this part of the podcast, because I hope I don't want to just teach about robotic lawnmowers. I want to kind of bring that gender gap to not be there anymore. And I think sometimes women think that, men want there to just be like a men's club, for some reason. I feel like I hear conversations and I listen to podcasts and hear these things. And as a man, I sometimes just want to say, no, we don't even think about it. Like, that's the thing about it that makes the problem. We act how we act because it's how we act. We think very little about the way we act. So, like, I think very little about what people think about me when I'm playing volleyball, unless I'm defending my position. Okay.
Yeah.
Women would think about it. Women would be like, how does somebody think about me when I'm doing it? We just don't care. So it's like, if for any women listening, because I think it'll help them understand, and some people know, guys, we just don't care. But I think sometimes that's an important thing to be said,
Yeah, I think you're onto something, and that's actually exactly what I was thinking. So, that's what I observe as well. After working in industry, my industry experience was totaled, I think, 23 years, and then add that to the robotic lawnmowers. That's 36 years. In all of my experience, I that's what it is. So you got to learn to not take offense by it and learn what works for you when dealing with it. Now, I'm also in sales. Obviously, I can't yell at every customer, right? Yeah. But I have had to yell at 2 customers, and it worked. I'm thinking maybe I'm trying this not enough, So
I find anybody that's good at sales, you really have to be a chameleon, and what I mean by that is every personality, like. So and you know me, I'm very much an alpha A personality, but you have to know, sometimes I know if I'm dealing with another alpha personality and I want to get the sale, I need to let them feel like they're calling the shots, On the other hand, if someone does not have that type of personality and somebody is very laid back, I can definitely intimidate someone out of the sale.
Yeah, good point.
So you truly have to, this is part of like, emotional intelligence. You really got to figure out the person, not only that you're selling to, but the person you're managing, figure out what type of personality they have, and then try to manage or sell to that personality type. I think the most successful people that's what we figure out.
Yeah, that's true. And I would say I'm still on a learning path there. And I know mentorship was part of the things you wanted to talk about, but I could use a mentor in that space, most definitely. Because I'm kind of like you, I am who I am, take it or leave it sort of thing. And it is challenging to get out of that, and in sales and adjust for the person. in terms of employees, we don't have employees in our business yet. It'll happen at the right time. But one, I did want to mention about some training that I had at Motorola, where I don't know if you've heard of the Meyers-Briggs test.
No, elaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually a game changer for me early in my career at Motorola. Everyone should take the Meyers-Briggs test. It is a personality categorization test. I don't know how to say it. I don't want to get into too much detail. It's all over the internet. You could Google it, but it's basically helps you understand that there are different personality types. They represent it with 4 different letters, and it's the combinations of the 4 different letters. So I think it's 16 different types, if I remember correctly.
So I have taken this test. I just didn't know what it was called. I have to say.
Oh, you have taken it. Good. So that everyone needs to take the test. So it's like, are you extroverted or introverted? Are you a thinker or a feeler? Are you intuitive or are you, help me with the other one? I forgot.
Yeah, so I don't know. So I know for me, whatever test I take, it categorizes people into like it. So maybe it's a little bit different than this one, but so like mine comes up entrepreneur A. Okay, so it's like it classifies people into like sales, management, high level management. So it's trying to figure out how to put people in an organization.
Got you. Yeah, this is a different test.
Okay.
So you after you take the test, you'll figure out your makeup, your personality. So it's defining your personality. So for example, I'm an extrovert thinker. I'm not a feeler. I'm a thinker. A lot of women are feelers, just FYI. Men are too. I'm just saying many women are feelers. Let's see. And then there's intuitive versus, I forget what the other word is, but I'm intuitive. Okay. I think it's like intuitive versus whatever represents tactical. So it's kind of like creative people are more intuitive. You're intuitive, Joe. I'm very sure. I'm intuitive. And then the last letter is P versus J. Procrastination versus just get it done. And so I don't remember what the 2 letters stand for, but that's the way I remember them. So
you said this is called Myers-Briggs?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so
but you'll wonder why. Go ahead.
So here's what we're going to do. Julie and I, we're going to take this test together, and then on our next podcast, I'm going to somehow figure out a way to reveal which personality type we are.
Oh, that would be absolutely awesome if you did that. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then if you want, you can retake it and tell me, and I'll just for the audience, I'll tell them what all 3 of us were. It'll be kind of a good follow-up conversation.
Absolutely. I'll look into that.
So looking at the fact you've been in this 13 years, and knowing that there's going to be a huge amount of people needed for this industry, would you encourage women to get involved in this industry?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's going to be another great industry with good paying jobs. Some of the jobs will be outdoors. So ladies, that like the outdoors, that like physical work, here's an opportunity for you. It's not too hard. You see like the construction workers and the poor lady that has to turn the sign, that's pretty much all she does. I kind of feel bad for her because she didn't get into construction to do that. You know that.
Well, so can I got to tell you, I got to give you a different spin to this real quick.
Yeah.
This is perfect that you said this. So my dad used to be a union laborer. And for the longest time, the men would actually get pissed off because that used to be, before women were in the trades, that they would rotate who got to hold that stop sign. Because that was the day you didn't have to dig the ditch. That's the day you didn't have to shovel the stone. And then when they kind of started doing that, and then somebody had the bright idea, just stick the woman on that. A lot of the men were like, well, that's some bullshit. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It didn't help the women get along with them,
because now I have to work 5 days a week instead of 4 days a week. Yeah. And this is just yet another thing where here we are, there's a woman on one side of this call saying, women didn't get into construction to hold the stop sign. And then the men are saying, woman, you want to be in construction, dig that ditch. And there's just somebody in between that decided you hold the sign and you dig the ditch. And if they just let them work in harmony, it would probably have sorted itself out.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think this industry, I really love that you're the forward-thinking landscaper I was always dreaming about. I thought of you in 2008. So
Really?
I did not know how to find you. And then I didn't know I played volleyball with you.
See, and that just proves when I play volleyball, I am not business Joe. I'm coming to play volleyball.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So I forgive you for it. And I never held it against you, but I do think that I subtly influenced you with my signs.
Maybe, because I will say that I remember one day your car going past and me, and I, as just a landscaper, apparently not as forward thinking at the moment, going, robot lawn mowing, what the F is that? But it's good that I know that I thought that, because I know that the majority of landscapers, when they see my robots all over right now, are like, who's this effing guy? You know what I'm saying? Because that's kind of, I thought, who's this lady? So yeah.
Yeah, right. And this is the thing. Remember, I told you, I'm not going to be surprised if it's 20 years before we see them everywhere. That's what happened with video conferencing. Actually, it happened with color TV too. If you study the history of color TV, you'll find that out too. It takes, especially Americans, a long time to adopt certain new technologies. It's just the way it is.
That's funny you say that about Americans, because I actually was just saying on one of our podcasts that we think we're so far ahead.
That's literally the last one yesterday.
Oh, okay, yeah. Like we think we're so far ahead as Americans, because honestly, we're so sometimes our pride gets in our own way.
Absolutely, yeah.
And we refuse to look outside of this country.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember growing up, and being a teenager and a 20-year-old working at Best Buy, and everybody being like, oh man, wait till everybody else gets this technology. And what you don't realize is everybody else had it already. Yep. Like we're just getting
We're the last ones.
Yeah. Yep.
It's true.
And that's true, with robots. I mean, you know this, like you and I will be talking to people about robotics, and people are like, I cannot believe, like, who just invented this? And it's like, these things have been out since 1995. There's robots that have been out,
Well, actually, even in the 60s, there was a Mobot, believe it or not, in the 60s.
Really?
But but I had one of the reasons that didn't, it helped me in this business because I knew what to expect. Okay. Whereas others who join this business get frustrated and leave. So there's been many people who've dabbled in robotic lawnmowers and then gotten out.
Yes.
But I knew it was going to be like this. It's already proven, because in Europe, there's been, I think they're at 2 million units sold in Europe already.
Yeah, that's
so that proves it right there. And it follows exactly what the trend we saw at Motorola. I was in charge of deciding what physical hardware went into the cell phones pertaining to what we called multimedia. Because I was that video conferencing expert, I knew a lot of stuff, okay? And video is really the hardest thing to implement because of how much energy it takes how much processing there really is, okay? So I had visibility into the different features people wanted in their phones pertaining to multimedia around the world. And remember how I said in the beginning of the podcast, I'm analytical? Well, of course, I get data like that in front of me. I got to connect the dots, right?
Yeah.
So what did I find out? South Korea, number one, in terms of striving for the most megapixels and the newest features. Absolutely number one. Number two, Japan, other Asian countries. Number three, Europe. Number four, probably 50 other countries. Number five, dead last. Okay. So I went to the UK. One of the things that I accomplished at Motorola was I helped influence the product team to choose the research labs technologies versus external labs technologies. And that actually was one of my big successes. I got a promotion out of it and 1 million units sold. So that could be something I could be proud of. We were on a trip to the UK, and it was really kind of funny because we were pushing to a major communications company called Vodafone over there. that, Motorola's got this great technology and, we're going to make you a phone. It's going to have video conferencing, and it was going to have the Motorola Labs, which is the research group, our video conferencing. That's why I was on the trip, was to help influence, the customer to take the technology. And, you go to a pub after, whatever, that's what you do in England. And you were shooting the breeze with people, and they were literally laughing at us about how the phones in America were so different than the phones in Europe. In Europe, they had Nokia phones. They actually had smartphones then. They didn't have video, but they were smartphones. We didn't even know what a smartphone was.
Yeah.
They had apps on their phones. I mean, so this was 2001. That just shows you the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, no, there is a difference. And you always wonder how there's like this like brick wall, or like there's this curtain that somehow gets put across the ocean, that somehow this technology doesn't make it. Like, with TV and news and stuff, it's just, I always wonder how these things are not known about. I mean, I remember I talked to a customer about a robotic lawnmower, and they're like, what just hit me? And I'm like, what? And they're like, do you read a lot? And I said, no, I'm not a big reader. Unlike you, like, I could listen to people talk all day, and that's how I learn is this stuff. But they're like, a lot of the books I've been reading lately that are written like in Europe, they're always talking about their robot mowers. And I'm always like, what? And they're like, and now you say there's 2,000 over there, and I realize why. And that's crazy to me, that with all the media and TV, all the TV and the ads and stuff that we even have now, that it took somebody reading about it in a book that an author wrote. That's like a fiction book with their robot. It's just weird to me. It's like weird how that filters its way over.
It doesn't make sense, but I'm glad you brought up book, because I would have forgot to plug my book. So I
plug it. Let's hear about it. Because you've got a couple patents too, I think, right? We should talk about those.
One patent. I got one patent, but that's from my Motorola days. That's too dry to talk about. Let's talk about the book. So why? First of all, what is the book? It's actually about how to install the Ambrosio brand. But I called it Professional Installation Guide. And then, of course, I had to plug the brand. So I say, how to install the world's best robot mower. But why did I write the book? Okay, so we're a very small company. And when my phone rings and somebody has a problem, I mean, it's great that I get an opportunity to sell something to them, right? Be it, a part or possibly a robot. If it's post-sale, that's potentially a drain on my business, okay? And in the early weeks of selling a robot mower, to a do-it-yourself installer, right? They would be calling, how do I do this? How do I do that? Right? And I was like, I got to do something to eliminate these phone calls. So the main driver behind writing the book, there were two drivers. One was get the phone to stop ringing with support calls. That was number one. And number two was, help out with marketing, get some more stuff out there on the internet. So it was really those two reasons. But I'll tell you, it worked great. Doesn't work with every customer. And I'm really glad you brought that up about, you like to learn this way. And the reason it doesn't work with every customer is because people have different learning styles. Your learning style is more audible, right? You're not the only one. That's why podcasts are so popular, right?
Yeah.
But my learning style is visual. And it's like so important for me to see it. I often have difficulty retaining the spoken word. It's something I learned about myself. When I went to college, I found it necessary to write down literally everything the professor said, because when I tried to think about it after the fact, it was all jumbled in my head. Wait, did he say this? No, did he say that? And it was driving me nuts. So finally, I was just like, forget it. I'm just going to write down everything he said. So, we didn't have recording devices then. So I was just scribbling like mad. I could hardly read my notes. But it helped me so much. So anyway, you get all types of people. And a do-it-yourself robotic lawnmower, a person who wants to install it themselves, they're already a detail person. So they're not going to call you and even consider installing it themselves if they don't already have that kind of a makeup. And often they're willing to read the book. So I steer them to the book. I say, you get a free copy of the book. I tell them the stuff. And the other key thing I do is I give them certain words and phrases that are critical to a successful installation. Because again, I don't know if they're going to read the book for sure, right? So when I'm on the phone with them, I'll say, they really don't like loose dirt or mud. They just don't work in that. And then they'll send me pictures, and I'll be saying, look, I draw on the pictures and I circle. I say, you need to plant the grass, and it's going to take 6 weeks to get established. You need to put the wire around it so that the robot's not going there while the grass is getting established. So I have these kind of, words and phrases that help. So that's the one I thought of off the top of my head. Through our discussion, I may think of some more. They just tend to come out situationally. So yeah. The loose dirt or mud is like the A number one. I scare people into that. So.
Yeah, no. So listen, I tell everybody that's getting into this, if you don't know how to lay sod, learn how. It's the easiest thing ever. I always tell my people, and I'll expand off that. What's even worse than loose dirt is seed blanket. Seed blanket, you absolutely cannot use with robotic lawnmowers. It's just, it is where they go to die. They get caught. It's like putting a robot in a spider web. That's what seed blanket does.
All right, so you got my brain going now.
Yeah.
Plastic landscape edging. Okay, a lot of homeowners, they want the robot to do the trimming. Plastic landscape edging is the enemy of robot mowers. So it's like just getting that point across, right?
Well, yeah, because that stuff frost heaves, especially in our market. It frost heaves in the winter. The robot comes up to it. It gets caught on it in the summertime. The casters get caught. The robot can't get off. Then they're mad at the robot. And honestly, plastic landscape edging looks like crap anyways. I don't even know why. I don't even know how.
Some people love it. You're insulting them. Watch out. Some people just love the plastic landscape edging.
Listen, Kathy, we talked about this already. I say what I say. If I don't sell plastic landscape edging for a reason. There's nothing good about
I was joking with you. I was joking with you. Don't worry.
Yeah. So if I offend them, they probably weren't going to want to get a robot lawnmower anyways. So
they'd be a bad customer because they'd try to make you work. You'd end up walking away before you sold it anyway.
Well, listen. This is why I won't even sell a robot if we don't install it, because what you're saying is true.
Yeah. Exactly.
The amount of support you need after the fact is absolutely crazy. And one of the things that I bring up to people all the time, because they always think people like you and I are job killers. And what I try to explain to them is, no, we're making a new class of job. We're making a new job class. We say robotic lawn mowing technicians. This is something that when you look it up right now, it has not existed in America anyways. Because there has to be a human element to robotic mowing. Someone has to know how to put it in. Someone has to know how to do it. They don't come out of the box ready to go. Just like a cell phone doesn't. I mean, people don't walk into the store and buy a cell phone and just unwrap it and it automatically is synced to the towers in their name. Somebody is doing something at every Sprint, T-Mobile, whatever. So it's the same type of thing.
No, you're absolutely right, and I want to expand on that too. If you look back on history, these types of transitions happened over and over and over again. Okay, does anybody remember the switchboard operator that got replaced by the electronic switch? They show the videos where the lady's plugging things in.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore. Okay. So that was, way back in history. What about secretaries? They're always typing, right? What do we need a secretary for? Everybody types their own stuff now, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could say that, the phone industry was evil, right? You're telling me you don't want phones? Look at all the good that happened from phones. You could say the computer industry, oh, it's evil. Millions of jobs created. You're telling me we don't want computers?
Yeah.
It's going to be the same.
Well, this is one of the things that I've tried to tell people too, talking about industries and shifts in industries. With what we're doing in our industry right now, especially when landscapers adopt this, the biggest thing that I try to tell people is do not ever fall into the trap of, okay, so you're going robotic, so you're going to mow my grass cheaper. Because talking about going back in history, you can go back to the 70s and you could buy a Ford truck for $10,000. And now these trucks are $50,000 to $70,000. and they're more automated now than they ever were on assembly. All these places, all these things that we buy, cell phones, TVs, vehicles, that we spend money on and we don't think twice to spend the money, is automated that industry. And what I always tell people, by those industries automating, what did Ford say? Well, the quality is better. We have more quality control. The robot does it the same way all the time. It torques the bolts the same way. Well, robotic lawn mowing is the same way, same thing. It's, for the first time ever, landscaping is scalable. So your landscape contractor, or if you're a landscape contractor listening to this podcast, you have a specific outcome to expect from the robot you have on that customer's property. So because of that, you're increasing the level of service. You're giving them daily service. It's scalable. You know what to expect. And I don't know if you want to expand on that also from your point of view, but it's the biggest thing I feel like people like you and I need to continue speaking on, so that
absolutely
people can always afford the automation.
Right. Yeah, we both need to do that, and we need to do it more and more. Multiple episodes, whatever it takes, because here's the way I see it: these jobs just shift around. Okay, you put a robot on someone's property, now they're super happy because 1, it's cool. 2, they name it. 3, their lawn's mowed every day. You just made them happy, right? What does a happy customer do? Spends more money with you.
Yes, and continues to be your customer.
Now let's compare that to the landscaper. Yeah, it's really cool to have your guys driving that big zero turn, making the ruts all over the lawn that the customers hate because their kids are tripping on it and it's filled with water and it's killing their grass. Let's talk about the gas and the oil that's going everywhere. Dead spots, right? And then what? You got to come back and fix that, I assume. I don't know. I'm not a landscaper. You tell me. But, many people get a landscape service because they can just call up and get a landscape service, right? So That's why they get a landscape service.
Yes.
With a robot mower, they're like, well, my neighbor doesn't have one, and I don't have one, and I don't know. What is this? Is it going to work? It's not going to work on my lawn. They have all these doubts, okay? Now, that'll change because eventually, it's a curve, okay? So when that workforce is freed up and those happy customers are there wanting more services from you, the business that made them happy, they're going to spend more money and your property is going to look so much more beautiful, because then as the customer, you're going to want to buy the annual service, having the guys come in and put the flowers around, right?
Yeah.
You're going to want them to do the trimming that are those spots where the robot couldn't go. You're going to want them to do that. So they're going to spend that extra money and you're going to make more money. Now, you've got a lot of machines to maintain. That's true. But if you choose a very durable brand such as Ambrosio, you now have the equipment paid off in a certain amount of time, and I'll let Joe be the one who talks about all that financing stuff. He's really good at that. I'm not going to get into it. But then what you have after that is a cash cow. Your equipment is paid off, and the customer is paying you like he always did. But you're not doing as much work as you used to. Now, landscapers, what are you going to do with all that extra money? Come on, tell us. Maybe you should make a challenge for that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've said this with all of our automation, because this is where my brain is already gone, is one of the hardest things in landscaping, and one of the biggest reasons that, like somebody like me, okay, when you say you want to be a billionaire, okay, or the song, I want to be a billionaire, I always say I want to do $1 billion in revenue, okay? But what does that really mean? Most people see it as Joe wants to do $1 billion. No, if I do $1 billion in revenue, that means I have a lot of people under me that are successful also. I'm creating a bunch of other leaders, okay, and successful leaders. One of the issues in landscaping is, and I think somebody actually did it on accident. I think my podcast guy I said the glass ceiling, but he wrote the grass ceiling as one of the excerpts. But I thought this is going to be like this should be a new slogan in our industry. And what the grass ceiling is you have really good people that can mow really good straight lines mowing, but the industry only supports so much money per hour. That's the grass ceiling, okay? They can't move up. They can't make more money. So what are landscapers going to do with their extra money? Well, they're going to be able to pay people more money. We will be able to offer better benefits. Like I offer benefits to my employees. And it's always frustrating to me that I offer health insurance and my customers think that's really awesome. But then they get a quote from someone else that's $4 cheaper per week. And I go, oh yeah, well, they don't offer benefits to their employees. And they're like, oh, well, okay. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, are you okay with it? Because would you be okay if your employer didn't offer you benefits? Well, yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, $4 is $4. Then we start to get into politics here a little because okay, practice what you preach. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you truly care about humanity, give me $4 extra a week. Okay. If you don't give it to me, you really don't give a shit. Like, you just don't care. So, so then I get frustrated. But once I can, with robotics, I don't have to be frustrated anymore because I can still be at the price point the consumer wants me to be, still be profitable enough to have a company that a bank would want to invest in. Because that's the other thing people never talk about. People that are not in business don't understand that you have to sell yourself to someone else investing in you in order to continue to grow your company. So yeah, I mean, but Kathy, the benefits are amazing because banks want to see 20 to 30% margins. So when you talk about what I do well with financing things, when I talk to landscapers and they're like, well, I just can't get the financing. And I'm like, because you don't have the profit margin. You're turning a large gross revenue, but when your tax return gets reviewed, there's nothing there. And that's the problem in our industry. In robotics, what I tell people is start small, get 10 robots and then show your bank, look at this section of the company is profitable. So let me get 20 more. Okay. And then you show the bank again, hey, this section is profitable. Let me get 50 more. And before you know it, you start cash flowing. So anyways, that's a little bit.
That's great. That's great. You got to do a whole episode on that financing thing because, man, you nailed it. When you were telling me that stuff, you talked so fast and everything, and my brain couldn't keep up. But it was just like, I know this is cool, and I'm so excited. So that's all that matters.
Well, awesome. All right. So, do you think in the industry, I mean, do you think people are they afraid of the robots? Do they just not understand that they'll work? Like, I think I have a good opinion on why robots haven't taken off. I've already voiced it on some other podcasts, but to you, I want to see if our ideas are aligned. What do you think is keeping this from just going crazy?
So I see it two ways. There's two things I want to say about this. Okay. First of all, people are afraid of wires. That's number one. So when you talk about consumers, they're afraid of wires. Why? Because ever since we were little, we were taught not to touch the electrical socket. And in school, we aren't trained they don't give us any hands-on education with wiring. It's really as simple as that. So that's number one. Number two, the reason it's a challenge has to do with the technology adoption curve. And I want to refer both of you to a book called, and your listeners, to a book called The Innovator's Dilemma. It's, the examples in it, of course, are old time because it's an older book, but it will help you understand, one, what a disruptive technology is, okay? Robot mowers are a disruptive technology. And two, the technology adoption curve. So the way the curve is, it's all explained in the book, but I'll just give a brief overview. When a technology comes out, you have first your inventors. Okay, that's the category of the people who buy it. Those are the people who are willing to put up with all the problems. Okay, it's not quite working right because you're still working out the bugs. And the book is written to manufacturers. So that's why I know about this book, because I worked for manufacturers and I learned about this book at Motorola. So, okay, so you're working out the bugs. These are the people you get. They put up with it. but they're your evangelists also. So they help reach what's the next stage, which is called the early adopters. Okay. I have to say, with robot mowers, we've been through the inventor stage, and we are moving from the inventor stage into the early adopter stage in America. Now, in Europe, it's much farther on. So let's talk about the next stage. So it's like a mid-range stage, and then there's the mass market. That's the hockey stick, okay, is the mass market. And then after the mass market stage, it's the laggards. So those are your ultimate skeptics that are the last ones to get it, okay? But it's kind of goes through those stages. So when you're at the early adopter stage, there's not a lot of volume, but there's a lot of excitement. And that excitement builds. And then eventually it's kind of almost, the curve is almost exactly like the coronavirus, actually, because it starts really small, like it feels like nothing's happening, and all of a sudden, boom, everybody's got coronavirus, right? Same kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and the thing for us is we just have to make sure we're set up for the curve,
Exactly. Because think about what it's going to take when we hit that hockey stick. We need an army of installers.
Yes.
We need an army of support people. We need an army of knowledgeable people. We need so many people with what I call medium skills. So these are people who've gone to trade school, but learned the basics of electronics, the basics of mechanics. It's so important, critical to this industry. Not that hard to learn.
Yeah.
It's basic math. You already know that. It's just which formulas, so.
Yeah. Well, and what's really cool about the industry is, so when we look at the fact that we're over 100,000 pounds of carbon reduction with our robots right now, and to think that this is like not even scratching the surface. Okay. I see so much like political debate about, decreasing carbon, and people don't realize it's ironic that, we call it the green industry because it's, it's plants and it's green, but it's like, it's one of the dirtiest industries that no one talks about, because it's like, well, at least they're planting plants that absorb carbon, but we use so much carbon to maintain the green industry.
It's a good point, man. It's a good point.
Yeah.
So if you can decrease that, now you have a bunch of carbon scrubbers, which are the plants, not taking carbon to maintain it. That's a massive impact for people.
Absolutely. Between that and being able to walk out of your house on a weekend and not hear a gas engine, lawnmower, leaf blower, whatever. That is my dream, I tell you. We live in kind of a sparse area. I can't even get away from it there. I mean, what do you have to do? Be on a farm? I'm just trying to figure it out,
So, Kathy, when we were doing our podcast recording yesterday, the timing could not have been any worse. The neighbor next door was getting their lawn mowed. And I wished I could have sent like a signal out of I couldn't leave the podcast, but I literally would have paid the landscaper to leave and come back later. And it's crazy to me because all of my neighbors they haven't not bought a robot because they don't see it working at our house. They don't get it because they don't want to fire their landscaper.
Yeah.
This is like super important. Okay. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. If you have a robot at your house, it works. Your neighbor comes and is like, I can't believe how good that thing works. I can't believe how quiet it is. I love that robot. Oh, my grandkids come over and they look forward to seeing your robot because they think it's the coolest thing ever. Well, why don't you let me put one in your yard? I don't want to fire the landscaper, And it's like, okay. And it's what makes me so passionate about realizing that the way forward with robotics is not selling direct to a consumer. The way forward with robotics is to get landscapers to realize this is their $80 billion industry to lose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
It's their revenue to keep.
Yep.
The consumer wants to keep it with them. Okay. Right. It's why there's not 2 million robots, and they're, people have to realize too how small Europe is compared to the United States.
That's right.
If there was the adoption in the United States that there is in Europe, what do you think? There'd be 40 million, 20 to 40 million robots right here.
Easily.
The current amount,
Right.
So, so you look at it, and this story in itself tells the story. My own neighbors who love me, who would love a robot, just don't want to fire their landscaper.
Oh, yeah. So, Joe, you got to go talk to that landscaper.
I have.
Yeah? How'd it go?
Apparently not good because they don't have.
I will put it this way. They
work it on them. Come on.
It was because I won't actually name them.
Okay.
If they're listening, they know who they are. Okay?
Yeah.
And it was I saw them actually at the Ford dealership where we buy our own vehicles. Gave him my card, told him we need to talk about it, and he went, yeah, you can do the robots and I'll do what I do. And I said, okay, that's fine. He'll either, like you said, he'll either do it too late after I've already taken those customers. I typically don't try to sell my neighbors. I that's the whole, don't shit where you sleep mentality.
Right.
It's like I don't want them to walk over and be like, I don't really like how the guys trimmed that bush over. It's like it's too easy at that point for them.
Yeah.
So I typically don't try to do that. But there might come a point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done playing nice. I don't want to hear that lawnmower anymore. I'm going to get them to get one of my robots, even if I have to give it away. And
there you go.
Then they might regret it. We'll see.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I think actually it's critical that landscapers adopt robot mowers to actually stimulate the consumer market, because there's so much business out there. I mean, even now you got so many people who mow their own lawns. There's still going to be, even if the landscapers all band together and really adopt robot mowers, there's still going to be people who buy robot mowers and install them themselves, right?
Yeah.
So the thing is, the landscapers might not realize is that they're going to get a piece of that business too, because those people that install it, well, they're not going to have the equipment to find the line breaks.
Yes.
They're not going to have the mentality to problem solve when the robot's having trouble, right? And who's going to help them? Because it's not going to be Lowe's and Home Depot.
I know. Listen, Kathy, this is one of the things that so we do Lowe's initiative installs. They sell the 115H Husqvarnas, and now they can sell up to the 430s. And a lot of people think it's crazy that we actually even do them, but I do them because I'm the last person they see. The installer is the last person they see, and at the end of the day, there's an opportunity for me to still talk, or for our people to still talk about all the other landscaping work they need. Okay. Or to take that person that buys that unit that only does 0.44 acres and they have 3 acres and say, hey, I know you bought this at Lowe's. You didn't know any better. They didn't know any better, but this unit is not going to even start to get going on this. And you have to explain the whole, this is a bit razor versus a beard trimmer, all the analogies I use. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, they're like, oh, okay, I'll just return it and I'll buy it from you. Okay, great.
Yeah, perfect. I'm sure the manufacturer hates that, and
they do. And listen, I'm okay to speaking to it, because part of this, I want the manufacturers to learn as much from my podcast as the consumers and as much as the business people. And here's what it comes down to. Why am I going to support the people with zero knowledge? Okay, so big box retailer sells it because they're a big box retailer and they have all these marketing funds. But then they don't know how to sell it. They sell the wrong unit. Then we go to do the install, it's wrong. I'm not going to put a bunch of time and energy in getting it to be sold through them. And at the end of the day, the manufacturer should just be happy that robot is mowing for a happy customer. Okay. Right. So really, at the end of the day, the manufacturer shouldn't be upset with me at all. Who should be upset would be Lowe's or Home Depot. But then, listen, take action. You're a big company. Train your people.
Yeah.
If you are unwilling to train your people on robotics, get out of the way.
Exactly.
Get out of the market.
Right. And I'm all for them training the people up because, like I said, we need an army of installers. So pick it one way or the other. Either we'll train them as part of our industry that's separate from the way people shop now, or you'll train them. It's like there's going to be enough business. So I'm not worried about that at all.
Yeah.
It's going to happen.
But like I said, I mean, when you think about it, Kathy, the people that buy from Lowe's or Home Depot or whatever are the same people that were never using a landscaper to buy their flowers.
Yeah.
They're never using a landscaper to buy their trees anyways,
Yeah.
Those customers were never going to be our customer in the first place.
Yeah. And then you establish that relationship with them. And now you've got another customer and you've got all that additional business that goes along with it. Yeah. And it's win-win for everybody.
Yeah. But that's one of the things that to elaborate off that's why I tell landscapers when they see that they're getting sold at Lowe's or whatever, I say, hey, listen, don't worry about those people, because the only people you need to worry about are your existing customers and converting them before they go to Lowe's, and then decide they can just do all the landscaping themselves,
Right.
So,
exactly.
All right. So I've got a whole list of more questions here, and we're already an hour in, so a little more than an hour. So I'm going to actually scan. Jules, you got any question that you want to ask?
What was your toughest time in business? Like, out of everything you've done, what is it? What's the toughest thing? What lesson did you learn from it?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I guess it was in the very, very early days, because I'm the type of person I like to learn by doing. And, I was very fortunate to have my husband and business partner who was kind of like the coach in that aspect in the beginning. And I wasn't really good at listening to him, though. So I did make a few early errors where I'm looking at the money and I'm like, we're out of money. What do I do? And it's like, it was like such a wake up call. And it happened, I think, 2 times. And after that second time, I just vowed to never let it happen again. And that vow was the best thing I ever did. It allowed me to run the business the way I wanted to. We're completely self-financed, and we've bootstrapped this entire way. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah, you should be. You should be. So is there any new technology on your end coming out that you can talk about or you're excited about? Or is there anything new that you want to talk about, or maybe that's already out that you think people might not know about yet that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, there's things, of course, I know about that I can't say, so I can't talk about those. But
and we understand. I have all sorts of stuff like that too.
I guess I could go off on the engineering land and talk about graphene or something like that. Are you guys interested in that? You want to learn about graphene?
What the hell is graphene?
It's actually the same thing that pencil lead is made of, but it's 1 atom thick, and it goes in a lattice structure. And there's lots of researchers around the world studying it because you know how the computers and the cell phones are getting faster year over year. They're getting cheaper and getting faster. That's not normal. Usually you add features, it gets more expensive.
Uh-huh.
How is it possible that you add features and it gets cheaper? Okay. There's something called Moore's Law that had been true. I haven't kept up with it since I left Motorola, but up till 2008 when I left, it was the technology you can cram into an integrated circuit doubles every 18 months. Okay. So that was true up until then, probably still to some point after. But if you get down to an atom, you can't shrink it anymore. Like, you're done. All right. Yeah. So back then, I mean, when I was working there, I was like, it always blew my mind that we hadn't reached it then. And here we are 13 years later, and people are saying we're getting really close. Well, graphene is the end game. Okay. And so it's critical that people are studying graphene. And the interesting thing about research is there's always these technology breakthroughs. Okay. And it takes really, really smart people who work really hard on research to figure those out, to get us those things that we take for granted. Okay. And it's unpredictable. Takes many, many years. You look at all the scientific discoveries over the years, it was true for a lot of them, okay? So there is a possibility that a breakthrough may come through on graphene, that they can come up with something that's manufacturable, repeatable, and can be produced in volume, that is also low cost. Those are the criteria. And when that happens, we may be able to continue the trajectory of increasing features and decreasing cost. It's possible. So we can all look forward to that. But if we do hit that limit, everything's going to cost more. And that's the bottom line. So
Yeah. Well, so now see, we learned. I would have never known what growth. I think I'm a pretty smart dude, and I've been. You expanded my horizons, Kathy.
All right, cool.
I appreciate that. So let's talk like legacy. What do you want to be remembered for in this industry most?
In this industry, let's see. I didn't put any.
Well, okay, so here, you can just be in life in general.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it should be life.
I would say life, but I see you've been in the industry so long already. I would want you, I was going to say industry, and then I was going to expand to life. So you can answer this however you want.
I would say I will answer it with industry. I would like to be remembered as one of the industry founders, one of the people who started the industry in the United States. That's what I'd like to be remembered for. The robotic mowing industry, because it will be an industry.
Yeah, no, it will, and it is. It's happening. So, all right. You have any other advice for Julia working with a guy like me every day in this industry, or just stay on the path she's on? You know.
Yeah, I definitely can come up with some advice. I had a lot of thoughts ahead. I didn't take enough notes though, so let's see if I can resurrect some of my thoughts.
I do have to say, while you're resurrecting your thought, we had so many questions that we did not even touch on because it just flowed so much. So I think I almost may need to bring you back on again, loop you back down the line. Right. Because I think there's all sorts of stuff. So maybe when one of the things that you can't talk about yet come out, we're going to bring you back on. I'm going to tell you that.
Oh, yeah. It could be sooner rather than later. Yeah. There is one new thing that is coming out. I guess there's two other things I could talk about. So there's one new thing that's coming out that actually I will have a demonstration unit of shortly. And that is an Ambrosio high cut mower based on the 4.0 model. So hopefully I can make an appointment with you to show it to you. That would be exciting.
Yeah.
The second thing actually is a project I'm working on. One of the, if you want to call it a fault, you can. I actually think it's a benefit of Ambrosio is we have a lot of models. I think we're up to like 23 models. It's daunting to people to see so many models. It drives people crazy.
I personally we get that comment think it's a lot. Fault. It is really hard to keep up with.
Yeah. So I agree. And, you know, being in the industry as long as I am or have been, and the fact that Zucchetti, the manufacturer, you know, they were one of the founders as a manufacturer. There were three founding manufacturers. One was Zucchetti Centro Sistemi in Italy. Another was Husqvarna. And the third was Friendly Robotics of Israel that got purchased by MTD. So as a founding manufacturer that's been in it for 20 years, I think they see the wisdom in having a something for everyone kind of solution. But I also recognize how daunting it is for consumers, landscapers. It's just, you know, they don't know what to pick. So I'm actually working on a way of, an automated way of helping people choose the right Ambrosio model for the situation. So that's a project I got going on the side. I hope I can get that done over the winter at the latest.
Well, with as many mowers as they have, that will be beneficial. That is something you should definitely stay focused on over the winter because it will definitely ramp up your sales.
Be a game changer.
I mean, it is. I mean, even like when I was working with Mariani the other day and we were looking at stuff and I'm like so many options. Like well, actually, you probably remember, like, just pick one for me. Just pick one. Let me put it out there, So, because I mean, that's what happens. It's like you almost paralyze them with options.
It's true. And that's the idea I have behind the automation is there's actually a reason for each one. And it's there's benefits of one model over another for certain situations. So it's really helpful for getting the consumer or the landscaper. For each property, you'll have something that solves it. Now, actually, with landscapers, it may not be so important to have just the right mower, because it may be more important to settle on one or two models so that you can have commonality of parts.
Yeah,
so that your team knows what to do. And why is it not as important? Because the landscaper has other equipment to finish the job everywhere else.
Yes.
Right? It's not like the consumer where every yard is different, and to be successful with the consumer, you have to have just the right model. You want to optimize for the consumer. That model makes sense for the consumer, but for landscapers, I think it's very appropriate to settle on just a handful of the Ambrosio models. That's totally the right thing to do.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, any advice then? Or do you have any takeaways? Maybe I'll ask Julia if she has anything that she picked up on this podcast that she really...
Well, I don't know. I mean, to me, I think when we were talking about in which order everything blows up, like what kind of consumers will jump first at it, I think that's important to notice, because you're going to have people that are ready to, or are into technology and want to see the errors and see it evolve. And then you have the people that just want to wait until it's perfect and they don't have to deal with that. So, I mean, I think that was a good thing to note.
Yeah, I actually know who they are, and it took me 8 years to figure it out. So let's talk offline about that. I'd like to keep it secret, because actually it saves a ton on ad dollars to be advertising to the right people rather than to the general public. If you advertise to the general public, you get a bunch of tire kickers calling the phone, and that's, it chews up a lot of your time and you're not making sales.
Yeah.
So, but you're selling to landscapers, so it's a little different model. It may not be as important, but if you're selling to consumers, that's really important.
Yeah, and basically, even selling to landscapers, Kathy, I still have the same mentality, because I say all the time, if a landscaper doesn't understand their numbers, or doesn't know if they're making money or losing money mowing grass, it's going to be a really hard sell to get them into automation. Because I'm going to try to sell them on being more profitable. And the first thing I'm going to have to do is teach them whether or not they already are. So it's kind of the same thing, But So.
Great.
All right. Well, Kathy, this has been a heck of a time with you. It's all
right.
It's been
glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, good podcast. I think the customer, or the customers, the people listening are going to appreciate and enjoy it. And I think I might have to circle back and have you back on.
That'd be great.
So, awesome.
I'd really love to.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Have a good day, Kathy.
You too.